Can't lie. There it is, ominous voice. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning for a few of you. May be glad to have you here for the Code Connector 4th Tuesday meetup of the month. We do have a couple of names I don't recognize, so will do my quick spiel. Code Connector is a tech nonprofit group. A lot of us are based in Memphis, but we absolutely have members all throughout the country and these days throughout the world as well. What our focus is helping people in their tech journey wherever they may be found, whether they are beginners, boot camp, college, mid-level, or senior. We collaborate, and we have a really awesome community on Slack that I would like to join. I would like to invite you to join. I'm just going to go ahead and put that link down in the chat. And what we do is we have daily conversations. You see JC Smiley there. He's the one that really heads up and kicks off our daily questions, usually way before I had my coffee. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know what you're asking me right now. But by the afternoon, I usually figure it out. So there is the link to our Slack community. We do offer a variety of meetups throughout the month. For instance, yesterday we had our virtual lunch around 12 Central. Just kind of hanging out and chat. Tonight we will have a feature speaker. At other times we do UI UX meetups. We do data structure algorithm level meetups. We do code and shares. In April, this is a very big deal. Please hear this one. April, we are bringing back the lightning talks. That's where anybody in tech that wants to just talk for like 5 to 15 minutes on a tech topic of your choice, you can do it here. Just let me know or let JC know in Slack. We'll be happy to sign you up. If you are a super staff principal engineer making a gazillion dollars and you want to talk, cool. If you are a brand new beginner who just learned the difference between var and lit, still cool. We want to hear from you. This is that safe space. So those openings are open for April, the 4th Tuesday in April. But tonight, we have an awesome speaker. Really love his dedication to Code Connector and is continually showing up. He, like me, is a career transition person, former automotive technician turned software engineer. So everybody, please give a big welcome to my friend, Joseph Raynovic.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
And then after that, we're going to all go on mute so that the Zoom focuses on his face for the recording. Thanks so much. Joseph is all yours.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to share my screen here. So I'm going to work a tad quick, but I'm also going to drop a repo in. Let me see if I can drop in the chat right now. And then it's also going to be available after this. I'll drop it in Slack as well. And then I wrote up a step-by-step so that if anybody needs to follow, if you lose what I'm doing or you have questions after the fact, or just want to steal it as a boilerplate for your own. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to work kind of quick. So a neat thing, if you've ever tried to get a package.json, is you can do a flag for a -y here. Wait, yep. Can you guys see my screen? Cool. Okay, so you can do a flag for a -y. And that's just going to answer yes to everything. So, normally when it goes through all the crazy questions, you can just skip that. And the very first thing we're going to bring in is Express. And then I'm going to bring in NodeMon. We're not going to use that right away, but we will in a few seconds. And we'll explain what NodeMon does. Probably should have set up dependencies first. I don't know. Well, that's loading. So in order for us to, I'm going to copy and paste this part in here. Use NodeMon. We can come into our package.json and just add a quick script. And what this means is every time we run server, it's going to run the command nodemon server.js. And that's just going to save us a lot of headache later on here. And with that, we can bring in our server. This is where all the magic's going to happen. So we need to bring in our Express. Oops. And then I can type today. It's been a long day. First thing we have to do is we have to make an instance of that app. So do Express. And that's going to be our instance. Then we need a port number. Don't ask me why. I was originally taught someone used 5001. I'm not sure why. I have a feeling it's just to try to avoid things of collisions and things like that. But we're real close to having an actual app running here real quick here. So we're going to call app.listen. We're going to pass in our port number, and then it's going to take a callback function. And then in that callback function, Try to save some time in this beginning setup stuff here. We're going to console log that we're running, and we're going to console log on our port out. So back to that script I first said, we can say npm run server, and we should see that console logged out here. And we can see right here, our app is listening on port 5001. So that's how easy an Express server is to get running. Now, it doesn't do a whole lot, but we can do a simple GET request. So let's try a simple GET request. We'll just say, where am I at here? Do an app.get, and then we're going to say, let's just go to our straight where we're at right now. That's what that first argument is there. Our second argument is going to be our callback when this actual route gets called. It's going to take in two things, a request and a response. And in this case, we're just going to do something real simple. Hello, code connector. Okay. You can see as I'm typing all this, we're updating. Everything is constantly getting restarted. That's that NodeMon that I originally had earlier. It constantly watches all these files in here for changes. And if there's a change, it's going to update it. So this is what I use. I use Thunder Client. I don't know if many of you have ever used Postman, but Thunder Client's really nice because it's just right integrated into VS Code. So we can go over here. We're going to be hitting 5001. And remember, if you look right here, we're going to hit the slash. So we're not going to do anything else. And you can see our response right here. We got a response back, hello code connector. So that's a real basic setup there. But we can add to that quite a bit. And I hope to intend to, as long as we continue to have time. All right. So you can see that if we tried to put all our routes right here, if you had like maybe 100 routes, it'd get real cluttered real quick. So we can break that out into a new folder called routes. Then we can add a new file. For some reason, my stuff here is kind of backwards. Okay, now it makes sense. So again, we're gonna bring in our Express here again. And then now we're actually going to make our code connector router. I guess I didn't explain what I'm doing here. So what I did is I set up, this is going to be a simple API to track job applications. So you're going to have the ability by the time this is all done to submit the company, the last time we talked to them, what frequency you should be. So if you wanted to take this and add to it and maybe send alerts, you could easily integrate like a cron job with a node mailer to send you an email to remind you to follow up. Let me try to move this off the screen. So I'm sorry, I just saw your message there. That's called Thunder Client. Just Thunder Client. It's an extension you can add on. It is the cat's meow if you ask me. Okay. So here we brought in Express. We got our instance, and then we're going to make we're going to make CC router on top of that. And we're going to start that with okay, so this looks like we're going to just slash, but we're not going to, and we'll get to that in a minute. I'm just going to do a simple GET request here. And in that GET request, every time we do a request, we're going to have to bring in a request and a response. You can think of it as a request is what's coming from the other user, and a response is the object we're going to return back to them. So kind of an easy way to remember that, I hope. In this case, we're just going to res.send hello from the route. Just keep it super simple. Okay, so right now this won't actually do anything. And if I forget, we need to export this. We need to make our server aware that this exists. And we also need to assign where we want it to go. So to do that, we're going to bring in our new CC router. So now we've got our CC router, but our app still doesn't know it exists at all. So in order to let it know it exists, we can put it down here. Gonna grab that app object there, say app.use. Then right here, so on the CC route, we want it to use our CC router. And that is all it will take to get it from there. So now we should be able to go to this GET request. So this is now localhost 5001. We're on CC. And we can see hello from the route. So now we've got it broken out to where we can just add into this file our routes for anything that just ends in CC. We could make another one that is API, and now anything CC/API would go to here. So you can see where you can kind of break this out into folders. You could even do subfolders here. Really kind of keep your code much more organized. Okay, just to kind of not so we're just going over the same redundant thing. I'm going to copy and paste all that in, and that's just going to get us the rest of those routes there. And then now you see we have get, post, put, delete. So create, create, update, delete, and then this is going to be your get route. So here's your basic CRUD operations here. And we can go over here. So we saw the get work, go to post. You can see it gave us a success back. Wasn't happy about whatever I sent body there. We can do update, and then we also have delete. So all I'm changing is up here. I just have this all pre-configured before we started doing this. So now we have, that gets us our basic routes. What we don't have a way to actually see the body, and we don't have a way to do sequelize. So you can see right here, we kept getting undefined. That is because we don't have a way to parse that body. So we can just install body parser. And then we're going to have to come over, and this is going to be a middleware. So I don't know if any of you have ever used a middleware or what that is. I'll kind of briefly cover that. First thing we need to do is bring in that body parser. Oops. Am I getting that right? Nope. And then now we can bring in that body parser itself. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. That's too much to type for now. So what the middleware does is whenever a request, say we have a request coming from over here to our app. Well, it's going to go through the middleware. So every time it hits this request, it's going to run a middleware, and then it's going to go to whatever its destination is. So if you wanted to have a middleware that just console logs something, you could do that. You know, they make loggers and all kinds of neat things like that. All right. So now that we have that, we do need Sequelize and SQLite. That's what I'm going to be showing you guys with. The reason I choose SQLite 3 for almost everything I do as a side project is it's lightweight, it's quick, and it gets the job done. 99% of the projects you do yourself, SQLite's going to be just fine for. You go with some huge SQL database might make you really overwhelmed if you're trying to figure out how to connect all that. Definitely not for the faint of heart if it's your first time doing it. How am I doing so far? Everybody following me?
Man, you're doing great. Rock and roll.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so while that's going in, we need to create our database. And again, I think I'm just going to copy and paste this part in, and I'm going to walk through it. Okay, so this is all it's going to take to create a database. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring in SQLize. We're going to create a new instance of SQLize. Now, if you wanted to connect with this SQLize to a real SQL table, maybe it's AWS or something like that, this is where all those connections would go. So you'd have your host, your username, your password, or for SQLite, hosting it locally. That is literally all we need. And if we restart our NodeMon at this point, it should create a database, if I remember right. No, it will not create a database because we didn't bring it in. Okay. So we created that. We're going to bring that in to our server. And right after our body parser here, let's tell our app to use it. We're going to do SQLize.sync. This can be a double-edged sword here, doing a sync like this. I can't spell tonight. Because it will resync your database, which can be okay if you're making changes to it. If you don't want changes to it, it might not be the best thing. But now we can do a console.log. Maybe is ready. Okay, now when it restarts, now we should, as long as I have everything right, what did I get wrong here? The function, that's why. Okay, there we go. We got DB is ready. And just like that, we have a SQLite database now showing over here. And still, it doesn't do us a whole lot yet, but what we can do when you use SQLize, so SQLize is an ORM. Are any of you familiar with an ORM? Have any of you used SQLize before? Oh, okay. For those of you that don't know, SQLize is a way to communicate with the database using pure code. So we're going to use JavaScript to communicate with a SQL table. We're not going to write any SQL today, which is good unless you're fighting, unless you enjoy it. In that case, I don't know what's wrong with you. So let's do a new file. No, new folder. Because what if this was going to be a monstrous database or monstrous program, or it's going to be your own personal project, and you want to add more onto it. So that's going to keep this kind of organized here. And then I'm not going to type out all this whole model right now. I'm going to just show you guys it. So we're going to bring in model data types. We're going to bring in our SQLize from our database. So that's kind of a big thing here is this comes from the database because this is the database connection. And then we're going to, application is going to extend model. And then remember, models coming from SQLize. Then we're going to do an application init. And this is where our model is going to be. So if you've seen a SQL table and you got your tables in rows, this is going to be your ID column, your company, application date, contact name, contact email, follow-up frequency, and then we're going to have data types on these. Our ID is going to be an integer. It's going to be the primary key, and then we're going to auto increment as we use it. String, company is going to be a string. We're going to allow null. We're not going to allow null in this one. So it's the only one that we're not going to allow null. So that means it has to have a company. No company, SQL is going to reject it. So that is all we need. And then at the end here, this is where your model name, you can override the model name. SQLize will pluralize a lot of things and it can get kind of confusing, but we can actually specify that in the optional parameters at the end. So this is just basically, you see that we're going to pass it an object, and then we're going to pass it another object with our SQLize instance, and then some other parameters. All right. So that's all set up. That's all we need for our model. And now we're going to go back to our router, and we're actually going to have a little bit of fun here. So let's take this post request and delete this. And let's start with, let's say if not rec body dot company or not rec that body. Oh, yeah. It wasn't the only thing that's required. Application date was required. Okay, so what this is saying is if we don't have on the body of our request company or application date, we're going to run this code. And in that case, I'm going to copy and paste this again. Let's return an error and tell them that this isn't going to work. We need something else. So on the request, because of that body parser we put in there, we now have access to whatever's sent in the body of a post request. In this case, we're expecting company and we're expecting application date. And then all this is saying right here is that if this condition's met, set the status to 400 and then set a JSON, send JSON back that's just an object with an error and a message in it. If we do have that stuff, now we can do because we brought, I don't know if I brought this in or it automatically brought it in. We can bring in our model. Right here, we're going to use our model. Where is it? We're going to do application.create. Then you just need to pass it an object. And it will take a plain old object. And because we named company the same as our model, and application date the same as our model, we don't need to specify it. If we had a different name, we might have to specify and actually create an object, but in this case, we can just pass it this easy. Our res.status as a 200 because everything's good. .send, and let's send back the application. So we're going to send back this right here. So if all this goes well, they're going to send it. We're going to do a post request and it's going to get saved in our SQL table and we're going to send it back. So we can go ahead and try that. And then right here, send it. I don't know why we didn't get anything back. Double check that it went in the database. Okay, so it did go into the database. Not exactly sure why it's not coming back right now. But why is this? I've got other pop-ups kind of blocking my screen, so it's confusing me here. Okay, so you see we got a company, got an application date, and we got our contact name. Now, I probably shouldn't have skipped over this so fast. So in the body, JSON, so selected body, selected JSON. And then this is a JSON body we're sending. So we can actually receive this on the other end. And just to make sure it's really working, let's get rid of this right here. Well, let's do well, let's call that again. This time let's call the find all method. And then status is going to be 200 again. Send application. Okay. So no matter what, we're going to return an array. This is always going to return an array. So if there's nothing in here, it's not going to error out and it's going to just give us an array back. Why is that not working? I got something wrong here and I don't know what. Yet I'm showing it in the database. Some real-time debugging here today. What did I do? If anybody sees what I did, they feel free to chime in. Let's see if that working still. So that did go in. Did this? Yeah, we're doing. That's all working. Oh, that's a pretty bad mistake to make when I'm trying to show you guys this, huh? the importance of making sure everything stays async. There we go. Okay. So now we have 2 to look at. And you can see we're getting everything back. These are still null, but we still don't have a way to update them. So you could post now, but you can't update. So let's take care of the update. And then the update, we'll do a similar error. Yeah, I'm pretty good at debugging. I don't know if I'm good at debugging or I'm good at making mistakes. It's one or the other. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing, except now we're gonna check for an ID, because if you want to check, if we're gonna make a change to here, how do we know which one to tell SQL to make a change to? Now, there's obviously a lot of ways to do that. We could say where company ID matches Apple, where application date, contact name. We could do it by all these. In this case, I'm just going to do it by ID because that's going to be your easiest. So right now I'm checking for an ID. And if there's no ID, let's send an error back saying, no, this isn't going to work. I'm going to copy and paste this, and we'll go over this part too. And that'll help me avoid not making things async. So now these all need to be converted to async. I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so we make it past here. We're going to do our updated application. It's going to be application.update. Now, update is going to take in a couple parameters. The first one is, what are we updating? In this case, we're going to give it the whole application. We're going to send it the parts we're updating. It's going to look for anything in there that changes and update it. And we're going to say where, which is inside an object. And then inside that where is another object, which is going to be the ID. So we're going to say ID equals rec.body.application.id. All that goes good. We're just going to send back the updated application. And if I remember right, this doesn't actually send back anything but the rows affected, I believe. So if we go back here, we can see our ID of 1, Apple. It only has a couple things in here. So what if we wanted to update notes? We're going to pass it updated notes, and we're going to give it to ID of 1, and then we're going to have our application. So it sent back 1, and that means 1 row was affected. Come right here, and now we see this changed to updated notes. So that is, now we've got we can create it, we can read it, and we can update it. And the only thing left on that is to delete it. So if we wanted to delete it, we can just steal this part right here again, because that's going to be the same old thing, because we want an ID. And this is going, I think, a little faster than I thought. So I might actually be able to, I'll actually have plenty of time for questions and to cover a parameter, which I wasn't sure if I was going to have time. Okay, so now we could do wait application. So you can see we're constantly using this application model. Application.destroy. Now, where do we want to destroy that? We're going to pass an object with where. And we're going to say on the ID with a rec body .id. The reason I'm doing these question marks, I don't know if you've ever used this is kind of like a JavaScript way of saying, if this exists, let's keep going. If that way we're preventing it from crashing. I can't remember the exact proper term for it today unless someone else can chime in with it. Darn it. Okay. So at this point, we should have destroyed it if it existed. And let's just send back res dot send status of 200. And that just means, yeah, everything went great and we deleted something. Even if it doesn't exist, you could hit the ID of 500 all you want. It's always going to give a 200 back. You could see if something got deleted. There is a way to do that. But, okay, so let's see if we can delete ID of 1 now. ID is required. What did I do here? Body.id. I copy and pasted that. There we go. And we got our stats back at 200. Everything's okay. Come over here, hit our GET request again, and now it's gone. So this is kind of this is a real basic CRUD, and we actually have everything working now. I'm going to do one more quick option here. Show, because I know a lot of newcomers they learn React, and front end's fun, but if you don't have a database or a back end, it's hard, and then learning some of the stuff is hard. So once you figure out that back end and that API connection, to me, it's magic. I mean, I still remember the first time I learned this stuff, and it was just absolute magic in my mind, because it made all my apps come alive. So what if you've seen optional params in a URL like google.com /this /that? What if we wanted to use our API that way? Well, we sure can. So in that case, we're going to say cc /:ID. And this :ID is a variable. And we're going to make a new delete route here. And we're going to say anything on cc/ anything after that, we're going to grab it and we're going to assign it to the name ID. You can see right here, if not rec.params.id. So that's actually how we access. This ID is a direct access of that ID. And then we're going to return there. And if it's there, we're going to destroy ID where rec.params equals ID. And we can try that one. And that should be on number 2. And then that all worked. And we can see now we have an empty array coming back. So now we have nothing in our database. Obviously, you could do, if you wanted to, /anything /ID. You could also do /anything. And then at that point, that would be accessed by rec.param. Anything. And that would grab this part of it. So it's very powerful. Really common on a GET request that you're going to be using that you would use a lot of this, because it is frowned upon to send a body in a GET request. No matter how many times I've been told I still want to do it, but you're not supposed to do it. That kind of covers the overall everything I've done here. And like I said, if anybody wants to steal this and add on to it, make it your own, be more than I'd be happy to let you do that. And I think at this point, I'm ready for the 9 million questions people probably have. Does anybody have any questions?
My question is, and I know I've been really I don't know where to use, just the Thunder client that just blows my mind. What's your opinion on that versus Postman?
Personal projects, Thunder client, because it's all right here and it's easy for me to use. Especially in this situation, it's real easy for me to share my screen. Work, probably Postman. Reason being, I just finished up a huge, mobile application where we happen to log in, and all that has to be set up through Postman to log in before you can test anything. Postman made it easy to set all that up and share it with all of us guys working on it. So all I had to do was log in as a user. Bam, I'm ready to use Postman. When I made new routes and I updated them in Postman, every person on my team had access to that. So in that case, definitely Postman. In this case, Thunder client. Either I did a really good job explaining this, or this is all just repetitive information.
I know I have another question.
Yeah.
Do you suggest, as I know I'm an aspiring developer, do you think that when you learn the code, you should find sort of products like Thunder Cloud, like Thunder Cloud and SQLite, to learn about databases, to learn about those concepts before you take on or learn more industry standard application or tools like MongoDB or Postman?
I mean, I think that's kind of, it can be either or. I'm honestly not a huge fan of teaching people Mongo, only because I have never seen it used in the wild. I don't know any other developers that use it in the wild as a company. SQL is going to be the one everywhere you go, you're going to use it. And I find SQL hard to learn from a developer point of view because it's incredibly boring if you're not doing something with it. Like if you're just going to sit down and read syntax and play around querying a database, you're going to get bored real quick, because the last thing you're going to do is take your own time to figure out how to join and do all these crazy things if you're not using it in a real application. This, something like this, yeah, you could definitely, it's a great, I'm a believer in learning SQL on the fly. That's kind of how I feel about it. You'll figure it out. Most of the stuff, all your hard work's going to be in trying to figure out all your boilerplate code. After that, something like this, that's a Google away. That syntax is just a Google away. How do I update? Just knowing what it can do is enough. And at that point, you can just Google, like, how the heck do I do this? ChatGPT has been a lifesaver for like typo RM for me. So I see a question of what do you think is a user-friendly place to host a SQL server? If you're building apps at home, I say right here, this is our SQL right here. We're hosting it all right here on this app. So we're not on a cloud, we're not on anything. This is a local file. Still pretty quick. I do have a SQL extension so I can view the table, and this is a table right here. Aside from that, I'm not sure what would be a user-friendly thing other that would be a small scale thing.
Appreciate that. I see a hand raised from Coriano. Go ahead, Coriano.
Hey guys, how you doing? I was glad I
Hey.
was able to make it. So I do have a question regarding the code. I think it was on line 19.
Which file?
To be honest, I'm not for sure. Yeah, actually, yes, this file. So where you've got your different methods here for delete, put. So for line 16, just wanted you to kind of explain that, because I see that you are kind of checking to see if the reg expression is returning the ID, but you're checking to see if that reg object exists. And then if it does, you're checking the body and kind of going through that process. And I was curious why that approach versus just doing like a reg.body.application.id and then having the bending.
In this case, I just did that. I kind of try to do the optional thing. And like I said, I can't remember the name of what that's called today. But if, let's say, we don't do this, an application doesn't exist, we're not going to return an error. We're going to throw an error and crash the server. So this was a put request. Let's actually try that in action here. Let's go to put. Let's delete all this for a second. Let's try sending it. Am I on the right spot here? It should have crashed it. In my experience, half the time it crashes, so I just do that as a habit. There we go. Okay. So you can see our server's not running anymore. We just crashed it because it can't read undefined. So by leaving those options in there the way I had it, now it should reboot. And now we're going to just get back ID is required. So that is why I do that, just to cover my bases.
Okay, so you did the option. Okay,
Yep.
Perfect.
I'm sure
so-
you've hit the server the wrong way millions of times.
Yes, you have. And it's interesting because someone just brought up the knowledge correlation, which is similar, but it's a different syntax. So that might work for this as well. But this is, I do like this approach where it's stepping into it. And if it's, for some reason, if the request object is not there, it's undefined, it doesn't have to keep checking and going down, which is really nice too. So as far as performance, this would speed up, you know, a little bit, but I kind of like that approach where it's like, oh, let me check and see if that exists. If that doesn't exist, then we don't even need to move forward, versus like if we did like line 11, where you've got the reg body, it's gonna keep trying to check and move till it
Yeah,
gets to that.
keep scrolling down.
Yep. So
And
awesome.
one thing that I didn't explain is this is a really neat way. If you're going to be writing any of your API, do your error checking first. And if you're going to return the errors, do that first. The reason being is if you end up with a lot of logic here, you could end up with, 20, 30 lines of logic. You're going to get lost in the weeds. So if you have something that's like one-liner checks, check them right away or break them out into another function. And that way it makes it really easy to read and really, really easy or really hard to miss most of your code. That way you can kind of look at it and just read it.
Yeah, this is it's interesting too, because I tend to use the try catch with my API, but this is, yeah, it's neat to see a different approach for it. So yeah, awesome. Thanks for explaining that. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome question. Any others for Joseph tonight? We have time. Joseph, you blew him away, man.
Yeah, like I said, either they all already know this, or I just did a great job.
If I have
Repetition
questions
is the
later
mother
on,
of skill.
would I be able to? Would I be able to
Yeah.
message you on?
Oh
Twitter?
yeah, message me on Code Connector. Put it in a general chat, whatever you're comfortable with. Find me on Twitter. I don't care. Whatever makes you comfortable.
Cool.
And then I'm also I'll share the link again to. There's a GitHub repo for this with a step-by-step, so broken down bit by bit.
Okay, yeah, cool. I'll look for your link if you post it. All right.
Cool.
You know, I do have one more question. You, and like I said, I apologize for getting a little bit late, but you mentioned about how as far as like Mongo, it's not kind of used more on a production level. So I guess I'm kind of curious, because I do have experience using Mongo and I haven't had a need to use it. We don't use it in production, but I'm kind of curious, like, where does like a Mongo DB actually, how's that beneficial? And so I was just curious if you kind of know where you would possibly even want to use kind of a non-relational database or like Mongo.
So Mongo does have its uses. I think you're also dealing. I think we also deal with a lot of what's the word I'm thinking of. This is the way it's been done, and this is the way we'll continue doing it, kind of thing. SQL does have its benefits. Mongo scales really nicely. And that's a huge bonus to Mongo's way it scales. I personally, at my last work, I can't say exactly what I was doing. Mongo would have been the perfect choice for database. I could not get a single person in the company to sign on. It was Microsoft SQL only, and that is your only option. Even though I was the only developer, they would not sign off on me setting up a server with Mongo. And in those cases, it was a choice of 50 tables or one MongoDB object. And I thought one MongoDB object would make a million times more sense and readable and easier to work with. But
Okay, that's interesting. That's
Yeah,
fun
that
use
is
case
good.
for it.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Mhm.
Scalability. Okay.
and I am not the expert end all be all on this stuff, but I do try to get by.
So based on the require statement at the top, I take it that this is identical to Express.js, right?
Yep, this is an
Node
Express
Express is
server.
Express.js. Okay.
So Express it's built on top of the HTTP request. There is another way to write this without Express. Express just makes it really easy. So yeah, there's our Express app right there.
All right. Any other questions for Joseph tonight? Last call.
Sorry. I know this is just used for just like as a just as an example, but would you ever, I don't know, uh take out your middleware and use it as like its own class so you can pull from that, and then when server.js is parsing, would you would you have a use for that in just like in this example?
In this example, I'm not sure. I don't think there would be a use for that in this example. I mean, you could log it, and that's about all you'd want to do. There are nice logging packages that you can use. It would do a much better job just for off-the-shelf use.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was just my question for right now.
Yeah, and the same offer goes to all of you. If you have questions later on, feel free to reach out to me. I don't mind at all. If I've got time, I'm more than happy to help out.
Could you go over?
I see you, Ron. Go ahead.
Could you go over what the extended false is doing in the middleware?
So I'm not exactly sure on all that with this is just a body parser. And I know what this does is it takes our body and actually turns it into JSON. If I remember right, the URL encoded is to keep everything from using special symbols and then convert them to a string or convert them to JSON. If I remember that right, and I could be wrong on that. And what I mean by that is hyphens. If you set a body that had a string of that in there, you could start to throw kind of crazy, right? And I don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it was about. At this point, it's just a memorization of me typing it out.
Almost afraid to ask. Anything else? No, I was kidding. I'm just kidding. These are great questions, great interaction. I love it.
One more question. What was the abbreviation CC router for?
So that is code connector router. That's what I called it. Just because it's what I'm named for. So we're using the code connector router. See right here, we're bringing it in. It's coming from route/code connect CC router. So here's route/CC router. What that does is that directs anything that goes to port 5001/CC gets directed to the CC router. And that will all come into this route. Alternatively, you could do app.use/AA and then have AA router and then build a whole new separate router there. And that's where you're going to direct that's how we're going to direct our traffic. Think of this as yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna just wanted to mention, I had to step away, but someone mentioned about the body parser. Just wanted to add, if I'm not sure if you're able to let them know this as well, but it basically is that's what Express uses for you to get access to the body object in the request.
Yep, and to turn it into a JSON so you can work with it.
Correct. Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
I can't remember what this. I can't remember exactly what the extended false does. I'm going to look it up now after I get off this and try to refresh my memory.
Cool.
Either way, it's a good thing to memorize and just type it out.
Right. Well, definitely want to thank Joseph for his presentation tonight. That was absolutely awesome. Thanks for signing up, man. You did great. Two super important announcements. First things first, this Saturday, 12 p.m. Central, is our Code and Share meetup. I would love to see all 17 of you come hang out with us. Same thing, it's online, it's on Zoom. Really, really simple. Any code you have that you're allowed to illegally share, just come share it. It can be a finished project, half-finished project, homework assignment, little pet app you've been playing with for the last umpteen years. It's just not quite where you want. You can bring partially finished code and get help on it. Any code you want to share, that would be the place to do it. That's what we do every first Saturday at 12. And then the next one, we have a lot of meetups this month, but the next one I want you to really, next month, I really want you to focus in on, it will be the 4th Tuesday evening in April. That will be our lightning talks, and anyone and everyone can sign up. It's super simple. All of you here know something in tech. Every person and name I'm looking at has 5 to 15 minutes they can talk about on something. We're just looking for, I don't know, maybe 5 to 8 or so, JC, people to sign up. We have a few, but we're going to get a few more. And just go through some lightning talks on Tuesday. And it's as simple as, hey, JC, I'll give a talk. You get your little presentation together, a couple little slides, code snippets, you're done. Yeah, you know. And if we can get some regularity to this, it'll be really nice to be able to send some people off to conferences and things, use some of our budget and sponsor some folks, stuff like that. That'll be really neat. But we want to start small. So the lightning talks will be the 4th Tuesday evening in April. Love for you to sign up. Beyond that, oh, I want to get a picture. Hey, Joseph, if you would be so kind, stop sharing screen. I'm going to do a picture for anybody who wants to be on our social media. If you don't, feel free to turn your cameras off. I don't care. But if you do, turn them on now, because I'm not going to take all night to do this. I've been meme mugging all night, so I guess I'll smile for once. So here we go. If you want to be in our socials, it'll be on 3, 2, 1. Got it. Thank you so much. As I use snippet, I should have used the Windows tool. That's okay. I'll get back to this later. All right. Y'all have a great night. Thanks for coming out. God bless.
Guys, have a good rest of the week.